Hello, happy Friday. Hello, everybody. New hair, same hair, but we did a little bit more like highlights. I did pull it back because I cannot seem to allow my hair to just hang down in my face. But either way, hello, everybody. How are you doing this week? We have had a stormy, rainy week here in Texas, and it has been a little crazy. This is so funny. Something that I did not know was even possible blew my mind. And it's a crazy story. I mean, it's not related to anything else, but we have had so much rain that we have had kind of just standing water in our backyard in this one little section for a while now. And when it sort of dried a little bit, we noticed there's like a big hole, like this big. And I was thinking, it looks like somebody just like stuck a pole down in the ground. But then George was like, yeah, but there's like it looks like something burrowed the way that it was. And I was like, that's weird. Maybe it's a mole. I hope it's not a mole. And our neighbor, Ben, he was like, that's a crawfish or crayfish or whichever you want to say. And I was like, that's not possible. What would a crawfish be doing in my backyard in Texas, right? It's a crawfish. It's crazy. How crazy is this? Because it rained again, and the backyard was water, standing water. And so George was like, I'm going to go look at that hole. And sure enough, there's a crawfish in the back. Like, what? I can show you a picture of him. The kids named him Oliver. There's actually 3 of them. Let me find this picture, y'all. It's crazy. There's 3. There's 3 of them. I got to find George's picture. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to see like on my phone because of the light. Yeah, you could see that. Look at this guy. Look at him. Oliver. We're putting a name. The kids already put a little name tag. They want to make him a mailbox. We are in silly town over here in our house these days because we're just embracing joy where we can. I don't know. This is crazy. I had no idea that this was a thing. We are close to a lake somewhat, and apparently crawfish will travel and then they will live in the ground in your backyard. So George and I are like, wow, we are first generation crawfish farmers. Free pets, right, Caitlin? Oh my gosh. So funny. So completely funny. Oh my goodness. Hi, Michelle. Sending love. It's 4 a.m. starting my day with coffee chat while the boss, my 4-year-old, is asleep. Hello, Michelle. I'm so glad you're here. Yeah, so wild. They hitch a ride. Anna, is that true? Oh my gosh. It's so crazy. Thank you, Michelle. Says, I love your cherry shirt. It's oversized. I've been kind of into like oversized shirts lately, and it has this same design on the back. I got this from Etsy. We had a surprise iguana here not too long ago. That's so crazy. I mean, more expected maybe in Florida. Yeah, crawdads, right? Crawdads, crawfish, first generation crawdads. Yeah, crawdads, crayfish, crawfish. I've heard it kind of all the different ways. I was like, what? Has nothing to do with today's topic. However, a little bit of a crazy thing that has happened. What we are going to talk about today, though, in general, is just being discouraged. So I figured this is something I wanted to talk about a little bit because I have been hearing from a lot of people that this is kind of a general malaise and feeling. Oh my goodness, I'm trying to figure out how to write new mom to a 7-week-old. It is so hard. It's so hard to be writing. If anybody has tips for Kay Elizabeth about writing when you are a new mom, it is hard. We're going to talk about discouragement too, but I will say when I was a 7-week-old mom, like I probably wasn't writing at all for the most part. So when you're like, don't feel like you have to push yourself too hard. But if you want to write and you're looking for it, then nap times are kind of the best times, right? Or with Andrew, with his schedule, it was like, I knew if I put him down at like 6 or 7 p.m., he was not going to sleep through the night. So he would sleep for 3 hours. And then at 10 p.m., he's up again to nurse. And then he's going to be up for 2 hours. And then he's going to be down after that. So I took that 10 or 7 to 10 time period and would write during that, because I was like, if I go to sleep, he's just going to wake right back up. So, or wake me right back up. So finding that schedule piece of like, here's where I always seem to have a break. Or the other thing I started to do, but it wasn't until he was probably more like 4 months old or so, was I would just say, when George would get home from work, because he was working full time back then, I would just say, okay, it's your time. Here's a bottle. I'm going to go to Starbucks. And when George would get home from work, that would just be my hour. I would run out and do something. And that was great. With Evie, I feel like I just wasn't too worried about writing very much. I had already been kind of in a lull of my writing anyway, but I had George home full time with me. So it was a lot easier. Actually, I say I wasn't writing much, but actually Evie was only a few months old when we started the Witch's Key. So I was kind of writing a lot, actually, when you think about it. I was writing every day, but it was easier just because I had George there. So if you don't have someone with you all day, it makes it a lot harder. But leaning on help when you can get it, finding pockets of time, holding a sleeping baby or nursing a baby and writing on your phone, or a little keyboard that you can get that is something you could put on the nursing pillow. Like, all of those things are doable. I also I have a standing desk. And so I would wear Evie in I had that little Hello Kitty baby Bjorn or something like that. And so I would wear her and she would just sleep. And it's kind of awkward because you're like typing like this, but I got a split keyboard. So it was easy to write like this. I know that sounds kind of funny, but like most keyboards, you have to pull your arms in. So I got a split keyboard that pulls apart so that I could just have my arms out like this. So it didn't matter. And I would stand up and be bouncing her and writing. And it was great. So there's always kind of ways to do it. But you just got to find the right ergonomic solution to that, or dictation when the baby's sleeping. That can also work. Yay, Holly's here and Lexi's here, got off work early. Woohoo, so nice. Yeah, keep a writing pad in the baby bag all the time. That's a good idea. There are lots of, thank you, Kayla, gifted a Sarra Cannon membership. Welcome to the Broken Chapter. Yeah, writing on your phone, finding one of those foldable keyboards that you can just throw in your purse and then connect to your phone. Lots of options, but also only if you want to, right? It's a beautiful time to not have to worry about writing if you don't want to. But I know some people like getting back to work, so no judgment either way. All right, so discouraged. I looked up what is the technical definition of the word discouraged. And the technical definition, did I write it down? Having lost confidence or enthusiasm. So it can also mean disheartened. And I think, oh, yay, look, member for 7 months. Welcome, Taryn. So many of you are hitting 7 months. Before I get into discouraged, just because Anna had also asked if stuff had gone out for founders and stuff like that. I have the stuff here at the house. But I think I was in such burnout after getting the books out, and I still have people like, where are my books? They never came. And I'm like, 3 months ago, they should have been delivered. So no, we're getting it. We're getting there. But yeah, I just couldn't send anything out. I was waiting for one last item and it just took forever. So for Broken Chapter Society, for those of you that have been in it 6 or 7 months, if you're a founder, you will be, when you get your package, I've just ordered one thing that is for a 6-month reward, because I wanted to be sending out 6 months reward. So many of you have already hit the 6-month reward. But we are working on, we have just gotten a Discord server going. So this weekend, you guys will get an invite to a private Discord server that is just for the Broken Chapter Society. And part of what you'll have to do to get into the Discord server is connect your Discord to your YouTube, because that's how Discord knows if you are an actual member. And then if you go out of your membership, there will be a grace period. But then if you lapse for a certain number of months, then you will just be removed from the Discord. But that all happens automatically. So you got to connect your YouTube membership so it knows what tier you have access to and stuff like that. So Kat says, or Kate Writing says, I was the first to sign up after George. He beat me because he had insider info. Yay, first member. So yeah, that stuff is coming and it's going to be super cool and it'll be perfect timing because it will go out this month. But if you previously had sent me your address and your address has changed, there will be a new form that will go out to and an email that will go out to everyone confirming your address. So be on the lookout for that. And we will be getting that stuff out because I'm taking a lot of June off. So I'm getting it all out before I go. I don't yet know how complicated it is in terms of instructions on how to connect. It's probably something you could just Google, easier than me telling you how to do it. But I'm imagining that it's easy because it knows that it's probably going to guide you through the process. But George already added me, so I can't like run through the process, but I'm going to have somebody test it first to see what the process and steps are. But I imagine Discord will just be like, connect your YouTube channel and you'll just log in through Google is my guess, since YouTube is Google. We shall see. I will help you with it. Morgan says I have Twitch connected to YouTube and it was very easy. So I will find the instructions and post them when I post the Discord server, but it'll be easy. It'll just be like a step that you have to do. But I know it seems like, okay, we'll just send some mail out, but there's so many back end things like getting the back end of the website, the Discord going, getting all the decisions made, trying to make sure that we have a system for how do we get you into the like Discord or YouTube doesn't tell me, here's Jenna. She was a member at this level for this many months and this level for this many months. Like YouTube doesn't tell me that. And so we have to have a system on the back end that says blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, it's just taken my brain a lot longer to figure out than I expected because we had some life changes. We started Broken Chapter Society in October, and then I ended up with pneumonia in November and was sick for 2 months. Andrew was home all week this week, by the way, still with sinus infection and fever. So I am going to declare that this is the last day of sickness and we are feeling better from here on out because we definitely need it. You would need to connect Discord to YouTube for the Broken Chapter Society Discord because Discord will know if you're a curator, a guardian, whatever. So you have tiered access. And if you're a curator, you get access to all tiers. But if you're a Watcher of Shadows, you only get access to the Watcher of Shadows section, right? And I can't keep track of, 1,000 people. So Discord and YouTube do it together. But you don't have to join the Broken Chapter YouTube Discord if you don't want to. It's up to you. All right. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of a strange thing. It's like if I download the membership report, it will say how many months you have been at your current tier, but it doesn't tell you how many months you were at a previous tier. It'll just tell you like how long you've been a member total and how many months you've been at this tier. But I don't know, for example, how long you've been at previous tiers. And I know this is like, I don't want to get in the weeds of it, but it's kind of like if I'm going to send out a reward to people that have been a curator at the top tier for $10 a month for 6 months, that person paid $60. And I don't want to just pull everybody that's been at the curator tier because somebody might have only been at a $2 tier for 5 months and then upgraded this month. And then they get the same reward you did, only they paid $20 instead of $60. So just all those little things matter in terms of me figuring out the rewards to send, because also like I'm sending mail to everybody, but at the $2 tier, it's actually going to cost me money to send out the rewards because they cost more than $2 to send. So we'll probably do something that's like, if you're at the $2 tier, you don't get your reward until 3 months after you've been joined, just so it doesn't actually cost me money to have a membership. So all that stuff gets in the weeds and it gets complicated and just didn't have time. And that is kind of part of the discouraged conversation. We can kind of pull that back around because I know for me, part of my discouragement goes to like wanting very badly to be able to follow the things that are super fun for me and the things that spark and light me up, but then running a business and having course, like I am somebody that's multi-passionate. And if I could, like, I know some of you are like this shiny object syndrome. I would be writing 5 series at once. I would have a membership over here, a membership on YouTube. I would be using 50 notebooks and gaming all the time and reading. It's like there's just not enough time to do all the things that I want to do. And that in and of itself gets really discouraging, especially when I think about my age and getting close to 50, which I know really is still very young, but it's just that next milestone, right? And it's creeping up on me. And in fact, Evie did a Mother's Day thing that got laminated, and it says like, my mom is blank years old. It's like, why did they even put that on the sheet? Who cares how old your mom is? But most of the moms in Evie's class are like in their 20s, and I'm over here at 48 with a 5-year-old, which is, is a blessing and a happiness. But at the same time, I'm older than most of those moms. But she put 50. My mom is 50 years old. And I was like, well, I guess she rounded up. But it's just like seeing that reminds me that, I'm going to hit a point where more than half of my life is already gone and may already be. And so it's just like, oh my gosh, all the things I want to do. And like, I'm not as far as I thought I was going to be, or this thing didn't work out the way I thought it was, or I still haven't finished this series that I promised people, or I still haven't sent this stuff out. And it is really easy to get discouraged when it comes to that. There's also, of course, other life situations that make us feel discouraged, like a relationship didn't work out the way you thought. Somebody stabbed you in the back yet again. You lose a job, even though it wasn't your fault. Or you made a mistake, and it's the same bad mistake you've made before. Like, we're just bringing up some triggering topics today, and I cannot hold back because I want to talk about this. But like dieting, for example, it's like, I know for PCOS, I need to take care of my body in a certain way, but I am also fond of sugar and foods that taste good and high carbs, and my body craves it, even though it's bad for my body to just eat too much of that. And it is very difficult for me to eat in moderation. And I just tend to be like, I'm going to eat perfectly for 3 days, and then it just all goes to hell. And there's just a point where you get really discouraged. Or like with exercise, I very much would like to be the kind of person who regularly exercises. It's so good for my heart. It's so good for my mood. It is so good for my skin and for so many other things. Like, I always feel better when I exercise, but I also actively avoid it. Maybe because it's hard, maybe because I have always been the kind of person who's always been more in my mind than in my past, right? Like in my body, I've been more in my mind than in my body. And so even though I would like to dance, and I think it would be fun to do gym classes or to work out more, I just actively avoid it for whatever reason. And that feels very discouraging because I can't figure out exactly why I don't follow through on exercise. I've got some ideas about gamifying my exercise. And did I see Jess is here? Joshi Corinne, are you here? I think you're here, right? Oh, I have 3 extra YouTube channels I have planned in my head. How is your gamifying your life going, by the way? Has there been an update video on that? I'm just very curious to know. But that can apply to literally any like point in your life. It could be applied to finances. Like, man, I worked all this time to save, and then this emergency happened, and now our whole savings is cleared and we're in debt again. Or feeling discouraged that you can't seem to get yourself out of debt or stop the way that you're spending. Like, there's a million things. It could be that you're trying really hard to build up a social media following, or you've been trying really hard to get a certain kind of job, or to get a career going, or to finish your first book. And after a long period of time of not getting the results that you want, not being able to follow through, things not working out the way that you hoped they would over and over and over again, that's when we hit this point of feeling discouraged, which again means having lost confidence or enthusiasm. And it's like, how do you follow through? This all gets kind of intrinsically tied to motivation, right? And like discipline in a way that, for me, in order to sit down and write a book, I have to have some level of motivation or what I call spark for it. I have to have some spark of excitement to sit down and want to tell that story. But when I am feeling discouraged, I have lost that enthusiasm for the book, for the moment. And it's often external things that make me feel discouraged. But there are lots of times to, when we think about like Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw, for example, there were so many times I literally had a thought just like a month before the book was done, after years of working on it. But I had this thought many times throughout that process of writing that book of, I think I have bitten off more than I can chew, and I'm not skilled enough to do this. And I'm just going to have to tell people that I can't do it. And I was feeling very discouraged a lot about that book because of my own felt like shortcomings, that I wasn't skilled enough to pull it off. Discouraged about the fact that no matter how many times I tried to sit down and work on it consistently, there was always another meeting, another course that was launching, somebody's writing another email, somebody didn't get something that they wanted. And it was just like, or the kids are getting sick and this other thing is happening. And before you know it, it's been 5 days since I've had time to sit down and work on my book. And that feels very discouraging because I want to finish it, and you can't finish it if you're not sitting down. And so obviously you can apply that to anything in your life and think like, what am I feeling most discouraged about right now? And then think, hey, Vanessa, thank you so much for that. It's very sweet. We're all feeling, it's like confirmation. We are all feeling this. So how do you fix it? How do you get out of it? How do you not quit? How do you not give up? When it comes to some of these things, I have some tips of things that have worked for me. Share your tips in the comments, because I think a lot of people feel this way. And one of them, so Michelle says, I'm so glad you didn't stop writing it. You did an amazing job on it. And at the end of the day, I didn't give up because I had to motivate myself, because there was no external force that was going to come and motivate me. Now, that's not fully true. Jess says I'm on chapter 20 at the moment. She's reading Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw. It's not entirely true that I had no outside encouragement, because you guys were here for me, like my Heart Breathings community, my husband, my friends. And I did actually have some friends that said, you should just quit writing this book. It's probably not going to make you much money anyway. Just let it go. So that was discouraging, but also said from a place of genuinely trying to help me. Right. And then I did have encouragement from you guys and people saying, take as long as it's going to take, it's going to be fine. Which kept me going, because if I had constant people here on YouTube and everywhere I shared about the book that were telling me this book isn't going to do well, you suck, you can't do it, then it, and no voice of encouragement, I might have given up. Right. And that totally might have happened. And some of us might have actually done that before, where we've given up on a dream because the people around us constantly told us we weren't capable or worthy of that dream, or that it was a fool's errand, or that, we were, just silly for following that dream, whatever it may be, or people telling us we're not talented, or that we can't do it, or who do you think you are? Like, there's all kinds of things like that might be happening in our past. But oftentimes we feel most discouraged and most ready to give up right before we hit a breakthrough. And that is exactly what happened with Vanessa Shaw. Tears, crying, dramatic, just imagine dramatic falling to the floor in tears kind of moments of being like, I don't think I can do this. I have to give up. It's no good. When honestly, I was this close to the end of it and this close to pulling through. But sometimes when we're so close to a big transformation or a big up level or a big change in our lives, there's a piece of our like comfort zone inside of us that says, this isn't safe. You're pushing too hard. You're trying too hard. You're about to break into a level that doesn't feel comfortable. And it will convince us that you have to quit. And when you push against it and you say, no, I'm going to keep going, and you find your own internal fortitude and strength and resilience to say, let's do this, that's when the breakthrough comes. And that's exactly what happened. I cried. I thought about not giving, not continuing on. And then I was like, Number one, I went back to, why do I want to write this? Why do I want to finish this book? What's it worth to me? Right. And kept coming back to the fact that, number one, I don't want to fail this. Like I've sunk so much time into this and time away from other things people were expecting. I don't want to fail at this. I do truly want this. And I want it because I can see something special in this story. I know that it's going to come together. I just have to believe in myself and keep going. So in those moments of darkest time of not like feeling like I didn't think I was capable of it, I turned to, is this what I really want? And why do I want it? And that made so much difference for me. What am I willing to do to see this through? Do I still believe in myself and still believe in this story? And sometimes the answer might be no. And that's okay too. If you truly look at it and you say, you know what, this isn't even really what I want. And I'm only pushing toward it because I thought, like, you hear the story. I feel like it's a pretty common story of people's parents that push them into like law school or medical school, being like, you shall make all this money. And then, you know, when you're getting ready to go to law school or you're in law school, you hear stories about this kind of stuff. I feel like all the time with people that push themselves to go to like medical school is a big one that is a big story for a lot of people. And then someday they hit a moment where they're at rock bottom and they think, this isn't even what I wanted to do in the first place. Like that's a different kind of thing. But sometimes, like with the writing, when I examined it and said, why do I really want this? And do I still really want this? Is this still who I am? The answer was yes. And so the only option at that point is to keep going, even if it's hard. And to also, when it says having lost your confidence or your enthusiasm, is getting back to what makes me feel the spark again. And honestly, that is going to look different depending on exactly the situation, right? Like, if you, let's say, I'm trying to think of another example that isn't just my life. Yeah, I think it is fine to change your mind. I think it's just a matter of getting down deep into your own self and to say, do you actually still want it, or do you want it because someone else told you to want it, because the world tells you that's the like thing that's up on a pedestal, or do you not actually want it, right? And it's okay. And actually preferable if you decide you don't want something to give up on it. That's totally fine too. But when I'm feeling most discouraged, that's when I have to really get in and self-examine and say, do I still want this? Is this still authentic to who I am? And I feel like authenticity is a big part of that tie-in between enthusiasm and spark of, you know, the reason that I wanted to write in the first place was because I was a reader and a story consumer, and I love cliffhangers and witchy stuff and mysteries and twists and turns. And I love certain kinds of characters and certain types of story devices. And I love haunted houses and things that go bump in the night. And there's like a whole list of things that I really love and get excited about. And so when it comes back to a moment where you're like, this is really hard and I don't know if I can do this anymore, that's when you go back and you say, okay, if you decide that, yes, I want to keep going forward, then you say, okay, how do I get my spark back? And for me, the spark comes with me reconnecting with the reason I loved it and wanted it in the first place. And you know, that is a very specific example of being a writer. But if you are someone who is sitting here right now and you are thinking, I am discouraged about everything in my life, I don't even know what I want, I don't even know who I am anymore, then my biggest encouragement to you is to get away from the noise of everyone else and everything else going on in the world and sit in silence and go back to things that used to make you excited about life, even things that from when you were a kid. And for me, some of it is exactly these silly things right here: stationery, crystals, type. Like my mom had an old typewriter that didn't work, like the ribbon, there was no ribbon to it, but I used to just sit there and pretend and like try to learn and memorize where the little, like, where's the T, where's the H? And I would write, I love you over and over again just to practice and feel it in my fingertips. And so if you can sit here now and just think back to what is something that when I think of it from my childhood, like the nostalgia of it, or the dreams that I used to have, what is something that used to feel like a spark? And when I reach out for it energetically, does it still give me that bit of enthusiasm and spark? And if you're so disconnected from your own spark right now, just pay attention to any tiny little thing that feels like a spark, like, oh, that was fun. Or yes, I used to love that. Like, I think I showed this before, but like, I didn't really have access to witchy crystal kind of shops when I was a kid, as many of us didn't. But I grew up in the woods, so I used to collect rocks that looked cool, but also, you would go to like 4-H camp or something and they would have a gift shop. And in the gift shop, there would be like a little velvet bag and a big bin of colorful rocks. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And it would be like, fill up this bag for $5 or something like that. That was like, my eyes would get wide and I would be like, such pretty rocks. And I would fill the little bag and, take my little bunny up to the front. And then I would go home and spread those rocks out. And I would just look at them and hold them. And just like, I don't know, it was just so fun. Like that little, yes, the rock bins, right? It's just like the click clack of the rocks, right? It was so much fun. Another thing that used to bring me a spark is we had one of those cases that opened on both sides and it was just full of Matchbox cars. And my sister and I used to go out with a stick in the driveway that was all dirt and we would draw out houses and we would say, okay, this is my house. And then we would make ourselves little driveways and we would make roads in between our houses and we would pretend this is our pool. Anybody do this when you were a kid? I feel like I don't even see my kids play this way anymore, but we had nothing. Like there was, there was no e-readers. There was no TV. We had no cable. All we had was a thing on top of the roof. And we had like, we didn't even have radio stations that were good anymore. We had like one oldies station that we could get. So we had to entertain ourselves as kids, but we would, yay, sidewalk chalk on your driveway. Yes, exactly. We would make up entire stories. Yay, E. Marie's here. Hey, sidewalk chalk with, we just did it in the dirt, but we would make up elaborate stories about this is the mansion and this is my house and I'm a beautiful actress and oh my gosh, you better let me have that BMW car. And then we would get into arguments about who gets the nice convertible or the Corvette or whatever. But that was the beginning of storytelling in so many ways. Or I would go out into the woods where it was cooler than it was in the sunshine. And I would clear away the pine straw and make little walls out of pine straw, like just put little tufts together and clear out a space and pretend I had a broom. And I would tell stories like I'm a witch in the woods or whatever, a lost princess living in the woods. And all of those things were so fun. And it gave me a spark of enthusiasm. Welcome, Elizabeth, to the Broken Chapter Society. So glad you're joining us. So this is me every day walking around in a fantasy. I love it. We had a party line and a rotary dilemma phone. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Barbies. Now my sister would have never been caught dead playing with a Barbie with me, but she did play Matchbox cars with me. But if you can think of anything that still brings back that spark, and then how can you bring that spark back to yourself? And some of it might be inner child kind of stuff where you might actually go out and play with Matchbox cars for a little bit, but some of it might be just standing here and thinking, you know what, I did used to love that typewriter. Maybe I go get myself a new like free write or something that I can use to type on, and that'll bring back the spark a little bit. So some of you have seen me on YouTube plotting with sheets that are like this engineering paper or whatever. I also found this one on Amazon that is double the size. It's the graph paper. No, that's not going to show up very well because of the light. It's hanging on my wall and it's so huge. And I am taking this big piece of paper today along with these stickers that I got from Amazon. And I'm going to be plotting out world building stuff because in my next series, The Shadow Games, there are like teams that are going to compete in arena battles. And I know my main character, and a lot of the world building stuff is already set, but I don't have her full team decided. And so my homework for this weekend is to take this sheet and plot out not just her team, but who are the people she's going to face in season 1 of the Shadow Games, and what are their abilities, and why are those abilities so counter to hers, almost like kryptonite, and how can I create teams that make her fail or make us think that she might die, which she might. And that, like, taking myself away from the discouragement or the disheartened feeling of, oh, it's taken me too long to write, people are upset about this, or I haven't sent out broken chapter stuff. Like, if I focus on the ways that I have fallen short, which all of us are going to fall short at some point, if I focus on, like, in general, my writing income is, I don't know, a tenth what it was 10 years ago. And you don't want that to be the case. You want your writing income to go up and up and up. And it's very discouraging to hit a high point and then come back down to a low point. And it's not like it's a surprise. I haven't been publishing books and like income in other ways. Like, I didn't even have an Etsy income or a course income 10 years ago. So it all evens out, but it's just, if I focused only on my current sales numbers, my current sales rankings, how many fans just like left the Shadow Demon Saga behind because it took me too long to write. Like, I could focus on that and I would feel nothing but discouraging. Sorry, it would feel nothing but discouraging because I'm focused on the negative things. I'm focused on the flaws or the things that are going wrong. And there is a practicality to being able to look at the reality of your situation. Like, when we lost the house that we had been building in Charleston, for example, that was very discouraging because it was like, oh my gosh, we don't have a place to live. Everything's up in the air. I spent all this time dreaming of what our Charleston home on the marsh was going to be like. And it was discouraging. And at that point, I could have just focused on the failure of that moment of like, we're going to sue this place. We're going to be mad about it. We're going to try to look for another house. We're going to fight the system. And sometimes that's what you need to do. But I went internal and I said, what do we really want? What does my family really need right now? And it was like, we were able in just a moment to turn it into an adventure. And oh my gosh, you grew up in Warner Robins, Wanda. That is so cool. Okay. So for those of you that don't know, I grew up in Pulaski County, which is Hawkinsville, Georgia, and Warner Robins is in Houston County, which is the county just north of us. So Warner Robins was the place that we went to the mall growing up and stuff like that. When I used to teach, I taught in Houston County in some of the elementary schools there. So growing up in Warner Robins, how cool. Were you from a military family or just lived there, Wanda? Let me know. Yeah, exactly. And see that is okay. I'm so glad you said this, Augustina. And George says, I just got home in time to hear the word adventure. I'm so glad that you said this because everything works out in its own divine timing, right? And we could draw a line in the sand, like I used to draw a line in the dirt with my fake mansion. And if we started to say, on this side, I have a choice of focusing on all the things that continue to discourage me. And the more I dwell on them, the more discouraged I feel. And our bird just landed on my windowsill. You're so cute. If I can get a picture, I'll take a picture of him, but he might leave before. Come back. Oh, he left. Oh no, he's in the bushes. Oh, come on. I don't think I could get him. He was like on my windowsill. I don't know what kind of bird that is, but I always feel like animals are signs when we're talking here. But if you draw a line in the sand, you say over here is the things that continue to discourage me. And I don't want this to feel like toxic positivity because you guys know me enough to know that that's not my vibe. But at the same time, we are in control to a large degree of what we think. And a lot of times whether or not we're in alignment with our own authenticity and who we truly are and being true to ourselves, we can judge that by the way that we feel. And if we are feeling discouraged all the time and we are feeling like we're on the wrong path and things aren't working out and we missed our chance and it's too late and how come this isn't working and whatever, and we just continue to focus on all the discouraging things like I'm losing fans, I'm not talented enough, it's taking me too long, like any insert your own things that are making you feel discouraged right now. If I continue to focus on that, is that going to put me in a better place? And is that going to make me feel more aligned? Absolutely not. It's just going to make me wallow. And we do need to stay in touch with our feelings. We need to feel our feelings. We need to be connected with our feelings. However, it's important to sort of grab hold of when that negativity is just you're drowning in it and say, okay, how can I begin to shift this? Because the only way your life actually gets better, it's like when you're living in this place of discouragement, it's difficult to create. It's difficult to move on to better things. It's difficult to see new opportunities. It's difficult to get excited enough to focus on things, all of this. But if we can access a place that brings us to this other column where we could list all the things that are kind of a more silver lining version of those negative thoughts. So for example, I could say, look at all the fans I used to have for Shadow Demons that aren't even around anymore because it took me so long. First of all, is that even true? Or is that just something I'm afraid of? Might just be a fear and not an actual truth. So there's that. Question the premise if you know Becca Syme's QTP stuff. But also on the flip side, look at all the fans that are still here, even though I haven't written a book in that series in 3 years. Like, that's incredible. Look at all the people that still care. Look at all the people excited about the Shadow Games. There's a very different feeling in my heart and in my chest when I say those things. And if I were to sit here and focus actively on, oh, here's this thing that isn't working out the way I want, it's just going to make me feel worse. And I won't be able to see solutions. I won't be able to feel good because it's almost like it keeps me stuck in the past. Don't make up stories that hurt your own feelings. Exactly. Yeah. And exactly, Elizabeth, you're right. It's like, look at all the new fans I've gained over time that are just waiting for that final book. And guess how big that final book will be when it finally comes out because of all the new fans that I've gained since 2021. It's like, there's all that stuff. And, then if I say to myself, look at all the fans that are still excited, and I focus on, even if it was just, there used to be 1,000 and now there's only 10, there's still excitement in those 10. And I could think, oh, look at this new opportunity I have to start something new as soon as this book is done. And I get to go back to the world. And I remember now how much I loved Harper to begin with, like all those different things. And it changes your energy. It changes your aura. It changes the way you approach your work. It changes your motivation and your willingness to go after it. So what do you do when those feelings overwhelm you? For me, when those feelings of discouragement begin to overwhelm me, first things first is that thing I said about going back to the root of it and saying, what is my why? What's my reason behind, okay, if it's a specific thing, because I know this doesn't apply like with money, like let's say you lost your house and you don't have the money to get a new apartment or something. There's less of a why there, but there's more of a, what can I imagine? What do I really imagine for my future? And kind of shifting from this past mistakes, current situation, what's discouraged me, into a place where you're looking forward to the future and you're starting to think of solutions. So for me, sometimes that's like reconnecting with the joy, reconnecting with the things that I used to love, and trying to search for some kind of spark inside myself and saying, okay, this is where the real joy is. This is the why behind it. And, when I think about exercise, for example, I've been so discouraged over exercise. I could just give up and be like, well, screw it, I'm never going to exercise. And that could be fine. But like also moving my body in some way, whether I call it exercise or not, is important to me being able to live for the next 40 years, 50 years, hopefully. And so when I go back to my why and I reconnect with my reason why exercise is important to me, that's when I start to get excited again, is I say, oh yeah, it is really important to live as long as I possibly can and feel good and have energy. That makes me feel good. So that's one of the first things, is taking the things that's discouraging you and seeing if you can see it in a new light, where you're reconnected to the reason why you want this to go well and the reason why things could be so much better and how that would make you happy. I don't know if I'm explaining that exactly right, but hopefully some of you understand that. I think also we clearly need more trips to New Orleans. Yeah, we were definitely walking a lot for that. I gave exercise a rebrand and started calling it movement. The bar I had in my head for exercise was too high. Yeah, movement feels more achievable. And it could literally just be walking, right? Like walking is super, super healthy. And in some ways, for some bodies, more healthy than just about anything else you can do. And so it could be that, yeah, how can I think of this differently instead of exercise? Or somebody said, I can't even mention the word diet. Screw the word diet. You don't need the word diet. Diet means a prescripted set of rules, right? We don't need a prescripted set of rules, but maybe I could eat things that make me feel good. That's not a diet. That's just a choice of how to eat, right? And so it's like rebranding it, rethinking how you're viewing it can be helpful to get out of that sense of overwhelm. Another thing is to take the pressure off, because sometimes when it's like, let's talk about exercise. Like if you were saying, in order to exercise, that means I have to get a gym membership and go 5 times a week. There could be something in your mind that is so set of like, in order to be a writer, it means I have to produce this many words per day. Or in order to be a success, I have to be making 6 figures. Or some people have in their mind, I think this is so funny, like ironic, I guess, in a way, is that I see more and more people saying that in order to be a successful writer, they have to be full-time. And I'm like, when did this start? In a way, it's kind of an exciting thing to hear, because writers almost never have been full-time. Like that's almost, in the history of the world, that's almost unheard of in like the entirety of writing being a profession at all. The majority of writers for all time have been people who had full-time jobs and who wrote on the side. And they might have been professional writers, but they weren't full-time writers. Like I had the majority of friends that I used to have in the RWA. I maybe only knew 2 people, and those 2 people were like Sabrina Jeffries and people that hit the New York Times every single time they were publishing. Like most people had regular full-time jobs, and then they just also wrote books, right? So who suddenly decided that you have to be a 7-figure author to be successful, or a 6-figure author to be successful? It's ludicrous, right? All it means really is that we raise the bar. Thank you, Crystal, for the membership. Did you win that, Emery? Wow, cool. um, so sometimes, like Becca says, question the premise and say, is that even really true that I have to be full-time writer? And the truth is uh, you know, there are plenty of people who love their writing, but don't want it to have to pay the bills because it adds pressure to the job, right? Like then you have to write on a schedule. You have to write to pay your mortgage. That's awfully stressful. Some people wouldn't consider that success. They would consider that pressure, right? So you can reframe it. Another thing I wrote down is to use your tools. So often, some of it's kind of like reclaim your magic. This was a fun thing that happened to me today. So this past week, I have really been doing a lot of work, going back to TBM, which is to be magnetic, going back to certain kinds of energy work. I have started some parts work. Some people had mentioned the No Bads Parts book to me before. Haven't read the book yet, but I'm working with a therapist that does parts work. And well, I don't know if I should call her a therapist, but a counselor, we'll say, who does parts work. So it's like I'm using tools. Oh, Jody Jean, thank you so much for the membership gift. We'll just get everybody in the broken chapter. Let's do it. The parts work stuff has been very helpful. And it's kind of like you use your tools, you use the things that you have access to. And so often we forget it. Even something as simple as a playlist that makes you feel good because you love music. Like I know I am, like raise your hand if you're somebody who, when you have a good song on, it lifts your whole mood, right? And I got for my birthday it's right over here, a record player, and I have Dave Matthews, Taylor Swift, like some of my favorite albums over here, Prince. Um, Music lifts me up, right? And yeah, I see some hands going up. It's like it makes me immediately can lift my mood or make me feel seen or make me feel heard and understood. And I have access to we have more access to music than in the history of all time ever humanity. And how often do we forget to put on music that makes us feel better when we're in a bad mood? You listen to Love Train by the OJs every day. I love it. Yeah, it's like, remember that you have that as a tool. Remember that you have playlists that you can make. Remember that you have books you love. Remember that you have coloring books that can relieve your stress. Remember that you have a beautiful back patio that you can go read on any good time you want. Like, there's so many things. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed by all the emotions and other things, then make a list of what are the tools that I have. Yay, Lena's DMB. Fox, I don't think Fox is here today. Fox, if you're here, say hello. Fox is a DMB fan too, and she has been to like just ever like 20, 50, I forget how many DMB concerts. So amazing. But anyway, it's like, find the music you love that makes you feel good, make a playlist and play it every day. And it's, not to avoid your feelings, but rather to shift your energy when you can. Make a list of all the tools that you have, things that make you feel good, things that make you feel excited, things that make you just shift into a better mood, any of that stuff. Then another thing that I wrote down was watch your words. So self-talk obviously is a pretty huge thing when it comes to, if you've been feeling discouraged, really pay attention to what you're saying about yourself to other people and in your own mind. Because if you find yourself saying, gosh, I'm such a failure, or how could I have let it come to this? I'm not a good mom, or just anything else. If you find yourself saying negative things, like, I knew I was never going to be good enough, I never follow through with that stuff, I really suck, like whatever you might be saying to yourself, see if you can become more aware over time of the things that you're saying to yourself, and then shift that wordage just a little bit. Even have conversations with yourself in your mind. This is perfectly acceptable to have conversations with yourself in your brain or even out loud, and say, like, for me, it's helpful to think about Evie, because she is such a little tiny ray of sunshine. And I put together a new vision board. This is just kind of part of it. And yes, Brandon Sanderson is on my vision board. Just ignore that personal moment. But this is me. This is Evie. Don't we look so much alike? And then this is Andrew. And this is all of us. Andrew's only like 2 in this picture, and Evie's maybe 4. And I was about 5 in this picture. And my shirt said, official troublemaker. But if I look at myself as that little kid, and then I look at my little mini me, my little sweet girl, and I think, would I ever say that to her? Would I ever look at her and be like, you're such a failure, why are you screwing up all the time? Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine speaking to my child that way. Those kind of words would never come out of my mouth, because she is so precious to me. And yes, there are moments that I think, well, then why wasn't I precious enough to the people taking care of me to not say things like that? But I have to cut that cord and say, I don't know. That's their problem, not mine. There was nothing ever wrong with me. I didn't deserve that. I can let that go. And that's why I put this here that says, you have always been enough, because I'm moving into my healing era where I'm like, yeah, that sucked. It's not my life anymore. I'm moving on. I get to change the way that I treat myself now. I'm in control now, and I get to decide how I treat my child. And so instead of living in the past and being discouraged by the way it crippled me or the way that trauma affected me, it's time to move into my power here and say, I'm going to use my tools. I'm going to talk to myself the way that I would talk to my 5-year-old. And I'm going to Yeah, exactly. Imagine a stranger said that to Evie. Oh my gosh. There, listen, that stranger would be hurting. Like, I don't choose physical violence. I do not choose physical violence ever, but I certainly would not allow my child to be spoken about like that. Like, I just wouldn't. And so I think, why would I speak to myself that way? I wouldn't even let someone else speak to me that way anymore. And I am not going to let myself bully myself around. Not doing it, right? And so do the same thing for yourself. Choose an avatar, get a picture of you when you were younger and think, would you talk to that little child the way that you talk to yourself in your head right now? And start changing the words that you use when you talk about yourselves. Um, okay, 55 minutes. Time goes by so fast. Rita says, we are the meanest to ourselves with the negative talk. I broke down a few times trying to figure out formatting. I just needed to upload the book cover. I mean, listen, that comes from often just a fear, right? There's a fear response inside of us that says, what if I can't figure this out? Plus, there's also, you're formatting a book, you're doing something big, you're like publishing, and there's some part of your subconscious mind that says, this is dangerous, this is too big, this is going to be like, you're not safe to do this, which isn't true. It's just our subconscious mind trying to keep us small, trying to keep us safe. And so sometimes that comes out as anger and negative self-talk, because it's just like a wounded bird, or wounded dog. Like, you go to try to help it and it's going to growl at you. And that's what we do to ourselves sometimes. It's like, I'm scared of what comes next. And so we take it out on ourselves. So another thing that I wrote down to kind of talk about is that when we're feeling discouraged and things are not going the way that we wanted, it can be really easy to shift into thinking about shoulds. We should all over ourselves, right? I love that saying, but it's kind of like we start thinking, well, you should have done it this way. Well, what you should do is this. And it pulls us out of our authenticity and into this place where we begin to mimic someone else's path. We begin to think about what other people have told us is right for us. And we begin to almost betray ourselves sometime with the shoulds of like, well, what you should have done was this, and what you should do is this. And why can't you get yourself together? Like, you should be taking better care of this, or like any number of things, right? And we begin to say, okay, I'm going to get my life together because I'm really discouraged with the way I've been doing it. And it's almost like a moment where we decide, okay, I can't trust myself anymore. So I'm going to shift over here to the way that somebody else told me I should do it. And that's what I'm going to do. And this is such a nuanced thing. And I don't have enough time in 2 minutes to finish it. But I love that you said it turns off creativity, Starla, because that is definitely a piece of it. It turns off our creativity. It cuts and severs us from our own intuition, and it leads us down paths that might not be right for us, right? There are a lot of people that will say, this is the path. And sometimes their goals are just to make as much money as possible. So Janine in the Discord had posted in the Friday coffee chat, just kind of an encouragement that she said, I wanted to thank you for this space, because too often the top voices of indie publishing are too focused on the race to the top, the most followers, the biggest rankings, the most money, and squashing your passion in favor of trends and the lowest common denominator. But you allow writers and authors the freedom to choose whatever path, and that they don't have to spend $25,000 or more on their debut. Their first book doesn't have to have 100,000 followers on social media and become an instant social media hit. I have noticed a shift with authors as well, including one that used to buy into the race to the top, since burnout has hit many hard and they're realizing the heavy price, success or not. I think we're going to see authors that have been held back by the race to the top mentality that will flourish in the next few years. And I think this kind of sums it up to a degree, that when we are feeling discouraged with our path, we begin to say, okay, I'm obviously not good enough at this. I'm not trustworthy. And so we might shift our attention to someone who has all the trappings of success. They do have the most followers. They're making lots of money. Now, a lot of times that person's happy. And a lot of times that person is not happy. That person is on heroin. Like that's happened with authors. I'm not saying most authors, but I'm just saying there are a lot of people who are at the top of social media, the top number one money-making people that present a facade to the rest of the world. And then we start chasing what they have, thinking it's going to be something it's not. And then we start to realize, oh, that person, you know, I don't want to say any other kind of judgment, but that person is not living the life that they presented to me. And we were following that path, thinking that was the golden, like holy grail path, when in fact that person was miserable the whole time and we just didn't see the full truth of it. But it can be a very difficult thing to, when we're in the midst of discouragement, to learn how to trust ourselves and double down, because we can feel like the things we were doing aren't working, right? I'll tell you this one last little thing before we go. And you guys will know why this was not the thing for me. I was sitting with a 7-figure author who is obviously very successful. They make multiple $1 million a year writing. So they know business. They're very smart. They're very talented. And I was talking about my promotion schedule and trying to finish this and try like what I'm going to write next and how do I finish these series or whatever. And their suggestion to me was to hire a ghostwriter to finish the Shadow Demon Saga and the Eternal Sorrows series. Now, you guys know that, I mean, that's not even an option on the table for me. But to this person who is a 7-figure author, where the money and the hustle and the Facebook ads and all that stuff is their most important thing, that's a totally viable option for them, because their values and their goals are very different from mine. And what we need to realize is there is no my way is better than their way, because they're obviously being very successful and they're happy with the way they're running their career. And they do hire ghostwriters sometimes, and they do, have a bigger team of editors. And I'm fine with that. Like, I have no judgment for that person. I admire that person greatly, but our values are obviously so different, because for me, it's the story itself. And nobody else can do that justice the way that I can. And maybe it means that there's only 10,000 people that read my book instead of 1 million people. But those 10,000 people will feel satisfied by the ending of that series, because for me, it is part of my soul to finish that series, right? And so when we start thinking about, if you're feeling discouraged about the things that haven't been working out or the way that you've been doing things, when you feel like you're the problem, please take a moment to reconnect with who you are at your soul level. And instead of trying to look at someone else's path and think that's how I should be, instead double down on trusting yourself and believing in yourself. Like, nobody else is going to come into this world and give you permission to be yourself. Everywhere you turn, people are going to be telling you to be somebody different, that you should have been doing it this way, that you should have been, you made this mistake, that how dare you, whatever. But in the end, what we have that is the most valuable thing we have is our authenticity and our intuition and who we truly are. And it's going to look different for everybody, right? That person's goals are just different from mine. It doesn't make her worse or better. It just means we're different. But if I tried to follow her path, I would be hitting her goals. And that is not the life I want for myself. And if she tried to follow my path, she wouldn't be happy either, because that's not where her joy is, right? And we need to get to a point where, instead of looking at all the people that tell us to be different, we need to drown out the noise and start really listening to our own truth and our own intuition and saying, okay, I'm discouraged because I've been working really hard, or I've been doing all this stuff and it hasn't worked out the way that I want. So how can I, instead of betraying myself and trying to go after what the world tells me to be, how can I get quiet and really tap into my own joy, my own truth, the things that used to spark and light me up and make me feel excited and creative? How can I double down on that, even if nobody else can see it? Even if nobody else believes in it, how can I believe in myself so hard that I know my success is inevitable? So 5 minutes, we're 5 minutes over. But I just want to say, like, if you're feeling discouraged, Stop looking outside yourself for the solutions, because you're the solution. Like you are the solution, and you have it within yourself. It doesn't mean it's always going to be easy, but it will be aligned and it will be authentic to who you are. And maybe it's going to seem silly, and maybe some people are going to say that it's not possible, but I promise you it is. And in fact, it's more possible for you when you follow your truth than it is when you follow somebody's else's step-by-step path of how you get where to go. Like, nobody else can tell you but you, and you know it deep down. And we can all learn from each other. And of course, there are things that we can extrapolate because success leaves clues, but it's so valuable to say, here's the steps. That one doesn't work for me, but let's try this one. That one makes me feel a spark, and tap into your own intuition and say, I'm going to follow that spark and I'm going to ride it all the way, through to success. All right, you guys. Ooh, can we do another 55 minutes? I know we should do a 2-hour, 2-hour coffee chat. I think we are. If you are in the curator tier of the Broken Chapter, we're going to have a Monday afternoon coffee chat for the full moon. If you want to come join us, you can join the Broken Chapter Society or upgrade to the curator tier. And we're going to do an hour-long chat. And, I feel like at this point, you guys are my ride or dies. So, I can't even make excuses to how or why the Broken Chapter stuff hasn't gone out yet, except to say it will be perfect timing when it arrives, because the Shadow Games will be starting probably in early July, and you guys are going to get some really cool behind the scenes. And if you're in the curators tier, and probably the middle tier also, which is I think the Guardians, you guys are going to see some of behind the scenes of our summer stuff that we're doing. Thank you, Taryn. You'll see some of that as well, whereas I'm not sharing that anywhere else, but inside the Broken Chapter. If you want to join the Broken Chapter Society, you can just go out to my profile here on YouTube, and where it says subscribe, it will also say join, and that's how you join. But if you are on your Apple phone or your Android phone, you will have to actually go into YouTube browser, not the YouTube app, because you can't sign up on the app. But you can on the browser, or if you go to your desktop computer, you can sign up on your browser. Yes, it is Mother's Day this weekend. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful time. George has bought me a very special treat that I will share with you guys later. It's absolutely beautiful. So I will share that with you guys. And hopefully I'm claiming that everybody's going to be happy and healthy this weekend. And we're going to have just so much sunshine, joy, all the things. Thank you guys for being here. I know for me, I feel like I've turned a corner from some sort of molasses energy and self-doubt into just saying, okay, I get where I'm going now, and I'm going to really claim my own magic. And here's one final story, and then I will click off that. When I said that about remember your tools, also remember your own magic, because you are magical. We all are. We all have our own magic. And I got my hair done today, and then I was getting in the car and I was singing this song in my head, and I was like, okay, remind me of my magic. When I get in the car, this song is going to be playing. And it was like I put my phone connected to Bluetooth. The end of a song was playing, and the next song that came on was that exact song I had in my mind as I was walking to my car. And it was less than 30 seconds after I got in the car and said, remind me of my magic. That's going to be the song. And I was kind of just being silly about it. And then there it was. And I was like, all right, I am magic. And if I believe in myself, nobody can hold me back. So the same is true for you. What was the song? Like Benny Benson or whatever song where it's like, sorry, I'm here for someone else. For some reason, that song has been playing in my head for so long. And I was like, all right, I want to hear that song. I declare that will be the song that's going to be on the radio. It's not a get it done kind of song, but it was just a song that I just really wanted to hear. And there it was. And so you never know, your magic is out there, and there's nothing special about me that isn't also special about you. We each have our own, I didn't say that right, but each of us is special in our own way, and you have your own magic too. So claim it this weekend and ask for a sign and it will hopefully appear for you. All right. I super love you guys. Thanks for being here for this cool chat. And yeah, thanks to everybody that joined or upgraded Broken Chapter. I will see some of you on Monday. All right. Happy Mother's Day and happy weekend, everyone. Bye.